Everyone loves a good cinematic super move in a fighting game. You save up your meter and then your fighter unleashes their strongest attack with a little cutscene to boot. But sometimes a super move is more than just a few hits. Some characters use that cutscene time to wail on the opponent with as much force as possible. In my disrespectful super move video, I looked at characters that took a bit of time to figuratively or literally laugh at their opponent when they could have been doing damage during their super moves. But for this video, I want to look at the characters that have a different game plan. They instead spend every second of their super move going as hard as possible, even when they should just stop and give both the opponent and themselves a rest. To get on this list, these super moves overkill it by finding ways to get in extra hits or just give us an unexpectedly painful finale. Also, one character per series of origin. Now, let's finish off the top 10 overkill fighting game super moves. Number 10. Doomsday is the alien that was able to kill Superman, so no doubt he's got a lot of power behind him. In the DC Comics fighting game, Injustice Gods Among Us, Doomsday lives up to his reputation and is a big brute force smashing kinda guy. He charges at you, jumps on you, quakes the ground, and expectedly, his super move combines all this force into one furious beatdown. First, he smashes you into the ground, and then smashes you deeper into the ground, and deeper, and Doomsday, you can stop now, you're running out of deeper ground. Then when he has nowhere left to slam you downwards, he just turns around and goes back the other direction. The overkill moment is when you see how far he has truly gone when we get a camera angle to show Doomsday is literally slamming you through the center of the earth with no consequences. It goes from Doomsday seriously giving you a pummeling to a Looney Tunes gag as if Bugs Bunny is digging to the other side of the earth, then back to the serious fighting. And Doomsday plays it completely straight. He sees no comedy in this. He just wants you dead, and he knows if he keeps punching downwards, that's pain, so there's no need to change his strategy. Plus, if the opponent can apparently survive going through the Earth's molten core in the middle of this onslaught, I think it justifies Doomsday needing to take his beatdown to the extreme.
I will destroy you all!
Number 9. The classic grappler super move tosses you up and then slams you down. It comes in many varieties, but the general steps are similar. But what happens when you amp up the intensity of these steps? Well, you get ultimate destruction when you stick that landing. Waldstein from Under Night in Birth gives us one of these command grab supers that goes into overkill mode. He heads for the sky to start the super move and then brings you back down while holding your head as your body burns as if you're entering the atmosphere from outer space. And finally, when he lands to slam you into the ground, the earth shakes and shatters well beyond the arena. The overkill is especially noticeable when you look at one of his weaker super moves that follows the same beats by comparison, just not as destructive. In the weaker super move, he tosses you up, throws you down, and instead, he body slams you as he gets lit on fire as he lands, with the ground breaking only a little, a lot less of a spectacle than with the bigger super move. It's really the end that gets me with this super move, just that zooming out shot of the ground breaking. The overkill of the arena getting destroyed on impact after a long drop from the sky is reminiscent of other ultimate attacks from grapplers. However, most of those grapplers appear in fighting game series that already have other characters later on this list, so by process of elimination, Waldstein gets to be the representative for this style of super move. Keep on slamming. Oh, it's supposed to be pronounced Waldstein. Whoops, accidentally did a Young Frankenstein style gag there. Number 8.
You have no chance.
Regardless of your favorite Dragon Ball fighting game, they all have amazing super moves when it comes to cutscenes, but the Budokai Tenkaichi and Raging Blast series are the only internationally released fighting games to have Android 13 on the roster, who's a movie villain mostly remembered for having a trucker hat, criticizing Trunks' $35 haircut in the dub, punching Goku in the junk, and being a part of a fan theory that his default appearance is based on a younger Dr. Gero. But another thing these games allowed Android 13 to do was show off his excessive super move. In his Super 13 form, he recreates one of his beatdowns from the movie. The start and end of this super move are pretty standard for Dragon Ball Z. It starts with him throwing the opponent at full force across the stage and ends with him blasting them, but the middle of the attack is where he goes one step beyond most villains. Usually, when a fighter gets hit and goes flying in the middle of an attack in Dragon Ball Z, you just let them fly untouched, where you either let them hit a wall before continuing the assault, or blast them as they get thrown away. But rarely does anyone physically hit the opponent during that downtime. Super 13 though breaks that strategy by catching up to the opponent on foot as they fly away, and then he just starts punching. He punches them lightly enough where they don't immediately hit the ground, and then when they get too close to the ground, he hits them back up so he can keep on punching until he just decides to end it all by hitting them away and blasting them. I just like that he couldn't wait the extra 3 seconds for the opponent to hit the ground after tossing them away. He needed every millisecond of this super move to be filled with the opponent getting hit by him or his energy. It's that extra bit of damage that brings this to overkill levels. Plus, since his base form demonstrates that his SS Deadly Bomber Energy Ball can track you, he really didn't even need to knock you down in the first place to hit you with it, showing the overkill nature of this super move. I guess he just wanted that extra bit of violence first. Number 7. I've spoken about Jedha from Darkstalkers in like 3 other videos, and one move I always like to highlight is this super move where he grabs you with a giant blood hand from the ground, slams you around, and then uses your body to sign a blood contract with all your blood, followed by him absorbing some of your soul. Being a Shinigami Grim Reaper kinda guy who can manipulate his blood into physical attacks, he's trying to collect souls to power up the giant baby in the background of his stage, and this super move helps him get that precious soul energy that he needs. However, he goes a lot more overkill than he needs to, with an emphasis on the kill. All he needs is the contract to take a bit of soul, but when he gets a hold of you with that giant hand made out of blood, he doesn't just slam you against the contract and end it. He has the hand grind your face against the ground a few times, swing you around, and then slap you onto that contract as hard as possible where your body leaves a bloody imprint on the big paper. Then he collects the soul when he's done with all of that. The extra insult to injury with this move is in one of Jedha's win poses, he just chops the opponent in half and takes their soul without any contract needed, meaning he might not even need to do all these theatrics with the blood hand and the contract to take your soul, so the entire super move might have been unnecessary. He's just watching you suffer for fun. That contract probably doesn't even have a proper terms and conditions. Number 6. An instant kill in Guilty Gear is a super move that will defeat the opponent right away when it connects, but you have to meet certain conditions and inputs, so it functions like a super move without the set damage or scaling. Despite being called instant kill, a good amount of these moves don't explicitly kill. They're more just meant to incapacitate you, and maybe you'll be able to get up in a week. Some definitely do kill, but they're more likely just to rough you up or finish you off in a cartoony way. Raven didn't get that memo and causes ultimate destruction. He grabs the opponent by their head, ramps up the dark energy level, makes a creepy face, and incinerates everything, leaving nothing but ash. And when you think that they're both dead, his hand emerges from below to show that just the opponent is a bunch of dust now. I remember the first time I saw this instant kill, I asked my friend I was playing against, "Where did Answer go? Where's the character I was playing as?" And he pointed to a random pile of dust on the screen and said, "There." So technically, this move isn't as overkill as it could be, since he could have just destroyed himself too, to really hammer in how unhinged this power is. The gimmick of his character is that he gets a rush from experiencing new types of pain, so I'm sure there would have been some type of pain involved with being disintegrated. Number 5.
Incoming! Hey, strike, suckers! I love the smell of napalm in the
Rocket Raccoon's level 3 hyper combo in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 may not hit the opponent as many times as other super moves on this list, but him going from 0 to 100 when he drops that Mega Bomb gets it here. It starts off pretty simple. He releases a trap below the opponent and encloses most of their body in the ground. When they're dazed, you might be thinking, is he just gonna blast them like most of the other super moves in this game? Maybe something with one of his various oh my god! Before you even get a chance to look at him after he buries you, we're treated to a giant napalm bomb being dropped on the opponent point blank as Rocket grabs onto a helicopter ladder. Like this is gonna take out the whole arena. I'm sure he had weapons that could target a bit better. The surprise of what he was hiding adds to the overkill, though I shouldn't be too shocked since his gimmick is using covert tools much larger than himself, so why wouldn't he save the most destructive one for the finale? I'm not sure how overkill this technically is, since Rocket Raccoon's fighting the likes of gods, almighty demons, and things that are already dead, so just being an animal with a gun, it makes sense that he'll need firepower that goes well beyond reasonable. On the other hand, he's also fighting plenty of normal humans, so there's no true explanation on why he's dropping the bomb outside of just wanting to finish you off without caring about the mess. You know, it's a fighting game, so the basic humans and gods have their powers level off to cause and resist the same type of damage, so don't worry about it. Just let Rocket press that shiny red button and let gravity do the rest.
I love the smell of napalm in the
Player 1 wins!
The Guardians of the Galaxy are nothing without me.
Number 4. The original JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fighting game, Heritage for the Future, has a lot of wonderfully excessive super moves. I wouldn't even say that this move is the craziest that the game has, but it's probably the most iconic. It's Dio, it's a road roller, it's delicious. It's essentially one of the first JoJo's memes that we saw in the West, or at least the US in the 90s, when the series was still niche and many people learned about it through this fighting game, including myself. In the context of the series, during the Dio vs. Jotaro fight, Dio tries to crush Jotaro with the heaviest thing around after he freezes time, which happens to be a steamroller because they're fighting in a big city in Cairo. While it's over the top, it's not as bizarre as other parts of this adventure since it's something I could feasibly see lying around in this setting. The bizarre part is more that Dio just falls from the sky with the road roller after disappearing for a few seconds and then starts punching it when he lands. The game emulates this sequence pretty well, but for those learning about JoJo's through this game, Dio just seems like a guy who can randomly conjure up road rollers because he manages to find one regardless of the stage you're fighting on. Also, the fact that his super move starts with him vertically jumping off screen and then jumping back on screen with the road roller without stopping time changes the context a bit. You're like, wait, how'd you get that so quickly, and why do you need something that big? And beyond the overkill of the item he uses, he punches it until it explodes for that excessive damage. And shoutouts to the all-star battle version of this super move. The mechanics of that fighting game are different from the 90s fighting game, but you still get to experience the crush, punch, and yelling of Dio's road roller, just with more camera angles and a time freeze to start it off. Number 3. I'm not sure what the most iconic super move in King of Fighters is, but I feel like Iori Yagami has it. He's just giving you a heavy beating, but it's the way that he does it. The first half of the super move has him hit you a bunch with his hands, as we see with many other super moves, but then he goes for the brutal finish. He grabs you after the hand slashes and has a few maneuvers to follow up with. While his go-to moves involve him using his purple flames, just blasting you with them or holding you down to the ground to burn you, the best finish to this move is where he simply beats the ever-living hell out of you. He throws you on the ground and just slams until he's satisfied. This is supposed to represent him briefly losing control of the demon blood in his family lineage before going back to normal Iori when the super move is done. But since you can play as the fully mind-controlled Iori, this super move is also associated with him. The coolest version of this super move has him look back at the screen in the middle of the pounding, as if he's like, "The hell you looking at?" or "You know what I'm doing, keep walking." But I also like the Capcom vs SNK2 version of the attack where he combines the flames with the smashing. Really, as long as he finishes the super move while hitting the opponent while they're down, he's doing it right, and he drills in that overkill point by yelling "Playtime's over! Cry, scream, then die" in Japanese during the super move. Number 2.
特別に見せてやる。これが力だ。我が身に勝るものなどない。
The BlazBlue series has their own instant kill super moves called astral finishes. They work the same way as instant kills, where if you have enough meter when you need one round to win and meet certain requirements and inputs, you initiate a super move that wins the match if it connects. Though I feel astral finishes go even harder than instant kills. Most of these finishes don't feel survivable. Many of them end with explosions that destroy part of the earth or create magical objects much larger than the opponent, or you just take your opponent's soul at the end. So because of that, I didn't know which one to pick since I feel like this entry could have been a 30-way tie. Even the cartoony ones go overboard. Makoto punches you into the moon and it breaks. But after much deliberation, I decided on Azrael since I feel like each part of his astral finish subverted my expectations. Azrael starts with a punch to knock you down that also destroys the background, so he's already gone far enough. Then he thinks it would be better to toss you in the air, but instead of simply picking you up and throwing you, he decides to lift the ground below you and just throw all of that up like a pancake on a spatula. And he's really tearing into that ground. He's using extra energy just to make sure that all of you goes flying with a bonus. Then as you fall, he gets ready for the final blow, and you might be thinking, he's just gonna do one of your standard massive punches in fighting games. Maybe he breaks the dirt platform too. No, the current camera angle is not enough to handle all of this force. It cuts to a new camera shot in the distance as the opponent meets Azrael's fist, and then we get a bomb-sized explosion from a distance. Now this may leave a few questions. What happens to the opponent? How much of the arena is left? No one really knows, but Azrael got to kick it up many notches, so that's all that matters.
Azrael, win!
For number 1, I went with a classic iconic super move that doesn't need to do much to show its brutality. It only uses a few animations, but despite being less cinematic than everything else on this list, the implications of what this move does combined with the sheer ferocity of the character using it shows why it's the grandfather of the other Overkill super moves here. Number 1. Akuma's main super move throughout the Street Fighter series and his crossover appearances is a move where he taps into his dark powers, glides towards the opponent, and then appears to hit the opponent rapidly a few times behind a blinding light, and by the time it ends, the opponent is face down ass up, and Akuma has his back towards the opponent with the kanji 10 on his back. There's a lot to take in with each step. First, the Dark Energy. That's a Street Fighter power called the Satsui no Hado, which is a surge of murderous intent that envelops strong fighters trying to get them to fight their opponent with lethal force. Akuma embraces this energy to make himself stronger, showing why his power on its own is overkill against an unprepared human fighter. Next, the Hit Sparks. While at face value it just looks like a few rapid hits, that's merely what we can keep up with. The light caused by this move is the sheer force of him striking his opponent so many times in a row. Akuma is supposedly hitting the opponent 1,000 times, backed up by this attack being inspired by the Fist of the North Star technique, North Star 1,000-Hand Demon Sound Fist, along with Akuma yelling, "Die 1,000 deaths" in Street Fighter 4 before he does this. Then the opponent's death pose. You're really not supposed to get up after this, but since it wouldn't be fair only to give Akuma an instant kill move, you're just in a lot of pain if it doesn't finish you off. However, later games added in the special victory screen, where if this move does finish you off, you don't get the announcer saying KO like any other move beating you, it just plays the match's end with no voiceover, implying that this is not a knockout because the opponent is actually dead from this attack. Some games have a faint laughter in the background when Akuma kills you with this attack, which I think is implying the souls of the damned are coming for you now. The move is generally called the Raging Demon in English, but its Japanese name is Shun Goku Satsu, translating to Instant Prison Murder, confirming the lethal nature of this attack. Finally, the symbol on Akuma's back at the end translates to Heaven, which is meant to represent immortality, so it's kind of like insult to injury. This guy just killed you, and he can't die. The only thing more insulting would be if he left you in the Peter Griffin death pose after he does this move, which is an image I think about on occasion when I see this attack. So for being one of the first major beatdowns in fighting game history, and managing to hit you 1,000 times in only a few seconds, Akuma and his Raging Demon overkill it the most on this list. Now, what did you think? Were all these super moves overkill enough to be deadly, or do you think you could walk it off after facing some of these opponents? Which were your favorite moves discussed, and which ones would you add? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.